Welcome to the first ever Motorvait Supplier Showcase. I'm Neil Smith, CEO of Motorvait Automotive Consultancy. And in this series, I'm sitting down with the innovators behind the UK's most exciting automotive businesses, whether they're game-changing startups, industry disruptors, or established legends. We'll be diving into the latest digital and physical products currently shaking up the UK vehicle retail space. If it's making waves, we'll be covering it. So, without further ado, it's a pleasure to welcome my first guest to the show, Rupert Pontin, Head of Autograb UK. How are you, Rupert?
Neil, I'm great, thanks. It's good to see you.
Rupert, I've known you for a number of years now. To enable our viewers to get to know you a little better, a regular feature of this podcast series will be the guest icebreaker. So, please tell us 3 interesting facts about yourself, 2 of which are true and 1 that isn't. We'll then let the viewers dwell on this, and I'll ask you to reveal which are true and which is false at the end of the podcast.
Okay, no problem. So my first is that I went on holiday with a Chuckle brother. And by that, I mean Paul Elliott, who is one of the 2 Chuckle brothers. So that's my first one. The second one is I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, which was an awesome experience and very tiring. The third is that I met Sir Alex Ferguson once. But not in a normal capacity. I was actually in the gents at Wimbledon in 2015, and I looked to my left and thought, gracious me, and words to that effect. And yes, so I had a brief meet with Sir Alex Ferguson. We didn't shake hands, I'm going to say that.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Rupert. And look, you certainly delivered on the brief. Very interesting indeed, and we'll touch on some of that a little later. Okay, let's dig a little deeper into Rupert Pontin. Tell me about you, your background, and how you ended up where you are now.
Okay, so I live in East Northamptonshire, and I've been in the automotive industry since probably 1984, I count, so quite a few years. I've always been absolutely involved with vehicles in every way, ever since I was a little child, and probably first got involved with cars, selling them from outside my parents' house in 1984. But the first real job that I had, bar a period in estate agency, was actually with Wadham Canning, based down in Guildford. And I was a car salesman there. And I started with a little Metro 1.1C. I had no basic salary. It was commission only. And so it was a hard old go. But from then, I moved across to Glasses in probably 1992 and started working there as the caravan editor. Very exciting. And progressed through with them until probably 2001 when I left and went to work for actually British Car Auctions, but it was running the Audi UK used car remarketing division on their behalf. And so I did that for some years and left in 2008 when we had the economy crashed. And I started my own car sales business. And from there, ran through probably till 2015 running that. But in the meantime, did a little bit of work with the car shop for a while. And also I then went back to Glasses in 2012 when they had some difficulty with the valuation system there, and I went back as a consultant to help, and then worked through with them until 2017, at which point I stumbled across a startup company called Kazana. And you will remember Kazana, and I'm sure a lot of the people will also remember that Kazana was a startup that began by creating real used car values, but from retail backwards, which some dealers were doing at the time, but others were still relying on the traditional valuation method. So really, really exciting period, which culminated in the business being sold to Cazoo, and we both know about Cazoo. Yes, I spent 8 months working for Cazoo after the company was sold for a large amount of money, and then moved across to a company called One Auto API. And One Auto API are a data provider. And I've got a lot of time and respect for Mark Fretwell that runs One Auto API and the products and services that they offer. But I was approached by a gentleman from Australia at the back end of probably 2023, and it was just before Christmas. And the name I kind of remembered, it was a chap called Tony Williams. And I thought, didn't he work in Fleet, many, many years ago, 20 years ago, early 90s and so forth. And it turned out that he did, but he disappeared off to Australia to make his fame and fortune. And I had a meeting with him in the January time, and he was asking about automotive data for the UK and what the picture was like for pricing and so forth in the UK. And I realized from what he said that, yeah, there was a data opportunity for One Auto API for sure, but actually for me, I wanted to bring Autograb to the UK. It was weird, really, because you know how these things are. You get to a point with certain career paths, and when I left Kazana, when the business was sold, I hadn't finished that journey. We'd done an awful lot with retail used car pricing and dealer stock management systems and so forth, but Autograb were at the same position in the home country as Kazana had been, and I just knew that I needed to bring Autograb to the UK, and that's how I ended up. I suppose if you think back across all those years, you could probably describe me as an automotive lifer, but I think you probably understand what I mean by that.
Certainly. Yeah. And look, the Kazana piece was great. I think that's when you and I sort of really, got to know each other through the Kazana piece and coming and looking at what that business was doing. And then obviously there was the NFDA connection when we were visiting the NFDA three monthly meetings and sitting on the board there. And look, yeah. So we both went through the Kazoo journey, which way too much to talk about in this 20-minute session. So we'll leave that one where it is. But I suppose the Autograb piece is interesting from when we look at it now in terms of today's market. And I suppose it'd be interesting just to get a quick taste of what Autograb have done in Australia and how you're now looking to bring that to the UK.
Yeah, sure. So interestingly, Autograb was started by two guys, co-founders, Daniel Würzberger and Chris Gardner, in 2020. And it was just as they were heading into the COVID period, as we all did. And I think the pandemic probably helped to get the business up and running quite quickly. The idea was to solve the pain problems that the dealers over there had. And the pain problems in Australia, very similar to here, but a younger marketplace, were around being able to find vehicles for sale and being able to price vehicles accurately. So it's a very different marketplace over there. But they swiftly developed a product that I'll talk about a little bit later called sourcing. And that was designed to help dealers to be able to find stock they previously didn't have visibility of. And tied to that was vehicle pricing. And again, that business model, but a far more advanced version of what I was used to in terms of looking at whole market data and creating vehicle pricing. That swiftly led into developing stock management platforms for dealers and so forth, and then just a general provision of all types of automotive data via API. But probably in Australia, we have 80% of dealers using an Autograb product or service in some form or another, which is a pretty established market. So they then moved into New Zealand in 2022 and had similar success in that marketplace. Then Malaysia in 2023 and came to the UK in 2024. The one thing I should mention that I didn't cover earlier was that we have a high penetration into the insurance marketplace in those countries as well. So we provide an awful lot of vehicle valuations for the insurance sector, pre-accident valuation, that type of thing. So yeah, that's basically the sort of Autograb story. And we're here to help dealers solve problems. And I think probably the things that set us apart most of all are the way in which we collect our data and the way in we're looking at a whole marketplace, not an individual advertising platform. So that provides a different slant on the market, some different pricing, some different and more comprehensive market metrics. We can talk a little bit about that in more data later. The other fact is we are real time, and real time back in the day in 2017 meant we were sort of updating prices on a daily basis and looking at data on a daily basis. These days, when we say real time, if we're looking at showcasing or showing a retail vehicle advert on our platform, that will appear within 3 minutes of the button click, somewhere around 3 minutes. So very, very quick indeed. The other things, I guess, probably the fact that we've got factory build sheet information and vehicle option data from, I think, around 42 manufacturers in total. That's looking at the global perspective, not just the UK. The UK probably about 37 or 38 because I strip out the fact that there's Chevrolets and stuff in there from different markets. But that's really, really valuable data that some people offer, but not probably in the comprehensive way that we do.
And look, I think, that is interesting to me. Clearly, back in the day with Imperial, we did a lot of work in bringing that factory fit spec into the platform. Yeah. Back then, that wasn't readily available, so we had to do quite a lot of development ourselves. So interesting to see that that's now almost being automatically factored in, I'm assuming, to the sort of valuation piece within Autograb?
Well, we don't need to factor that into the valuation piece. You have access to it through there.
Right.
I think that's probably something that we will do going further forward. I believe they do that in the Australian marketplace, but not yet in the UK. So we're limited to what we've got to start with in the UK. I have to say that going back to when we first started talking in 2017, the work that you were doing, I mean, you touched on the fact that back in the day you were looking at all sorts of different pricing points and whatever else. I have to say that of all the people that we were working with at the time, you were probably more detailed and comprehensive than anybody else. And that pricing matrix that you'd built with Imperial was, really ahead of the game.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it was a massive focus for us clearly at that time, and we were keen to stay ahead of the curve, you know. And I think part of this series that I'm putting together now is about understanding how suppliers like Autograb now are filling the gap that we experienced in those sort of areas in terms of that data piece, and being able to work retail back and having qualified and reliable and data that we could work with. So it's great to understand that. I think you touched on it in terms of the products. It'd probably be good to just understand the various products that you've got within the suite of products that Autograb offers.
We've probably got there's 5 products we've got particularly for the UK. First one is something called sourcing, and that's designed to take the pain away from finding used car stock, because we all know that one of the biggest problems for dealers at the moment is finding enough stock to fill the full. Costs on certain platforms and through certain avenues are quite high when you're trying to acquire vehicles. And this sourcing platform was all about showing every vehicle that's for sale in the UK marketplace. We probably see somewhere around 730,000 vehicles that are what I would call valid vehicles for sale. We actually have data on 1.1 million cars, but a lot of those are through certain channels, advertising channels that, vendors may be advertising the car, but actually they're just selling the wheels or something like that. So we trim it down nicely, huge amount of filtering so that you can see vehicles that are overage with dealers and maybe approach those dealers to buy those vehicles. Or what works really, really well in the other countries, and particularly here as well, is surfacing and giving visibility around those vehicles that are being advertised privately, putting them all in one place, showing what they are currently being, asking prices and so forth are for those vehicles, and really giving some details for the dealer to be empowered to be able to make a sensible purchasing decision. So that's our primary product. That's what we're working with predominantly at the moment. We're just about to launch a product called real-time pricing. And real-time pricing is an individual lookup version of some of the data that you would get within the sourcing platform. So for those dealers that are just looking for individual lookups, or lenders that just want to do some underwriting on individual vehicles, it helps them to be able to see what the price is on that global market, not just a single advertising platform, and be able to see similar vehicles in market and do some real good filtering to be able to decide, what the value of that particular vehicle is. That obviously comes with some provenance checks and so forth. That market transparency for the customer is really, really key for us. And some of the data that we're looking at to providing through DMS platforms and integration into various different products is able to drive quicker part exchange journeys, drive quicker sales by providing key metrics that will tell you, cars in market, days to sale and so forth. Similar to some of the stuff that our competitors provide, but I would argue that because we're looking at a larger marketplace, then we've got a greater depth of data. And of course, the other thing that we've got is the build sheet and option data. We talked a little bit about that. And finally, for the UK market, we've just started in the last couple of months to get underway, providing that pre-accident valuation service for insurers. So we've got a couple of businesses on board that are using us as that point of reference for the engineers when they're inspecting vehicles to help decide what the car is worth. So those are the 5 key areas that we're addressing in the UK at the moment. We've got other stuff coming, but those are the 5 key areas for us.
Okay, I think one of the areas I was interested in when you took me through the product was what was it you called it? Not remarketing, when you can see that one of your previous vehicles has come back into market.
Yes, you're quite right. So that's the recapture service.
Recapture.
Yeah. So that's a really good silent prospecting tool. So basically that works on the basis that a dealer would provide VRMs for vehicles that they've sold over a predefined period. So depending on the size of the dealer and the type of whether they're franchised or not, they might say to us, right, we want to see, we're going to give you vehicle registration numbers for vehicles we sold a year ago that were up to 3 years old. So arguably a 4-year-old car now. And in the background, what our product does is it sifts through all the data that we see. And as soon as one of those vehicles becomes available for sale, bing, it's a lead. Okay, so that gives them the opportunity to do one of three things. Firstly, phone the customer and say, hey, I've seen you've just advertised your car for sale. We'd really like to buy it back. Secondly, can I sell you a new one? You're clearly in market. And thirdly, if that vehicle registration number appears but for sale with a dealer group, then that is a way of just keeping your customer service and sales databases, pin sharp. So you're not sort of spamming people with incorrect information. But it works really, really well. We've had some really good success. And more often than not, we find that the dealers say, there's so many leads here. Thank you. So, yeah, that works really well. Please, it doesn't require a member of staff to be constantly having to focus on, should I phone them, shouldn't I phone them, who should I phone, whatever else. It's all being done for you in the background.
Brilliant. Yeah, very exciting. I think you've probably touched on most areas now. I suppose looking forward for Autograb, what's the sort of ambition within the industry? You've mentioned clearly you're moving into the UK insurance space now as well. But what ambition have you got for Autograb moving forward?
Well, we're quite early in the journey. We started selling the product in July last year. We've got a number of dealer groups on board and a few independents on board who are using the product. Really, usually very happy with sourcing, and that is absolutely what we want. We need to grow that business, and I think as word gets out, people understand how easy it is to use the tool. That's going to really, really help. But the things that are coming along in terms of new, exciting things, which will hit probably later this year, one of which is the development of our, what we call pipeline platform, which is live in, I'm sure, in Australia. Well, I know in Australia, but I'm not sure. It might be in Malaysia as well. But this is a tool that allows dealers to be able to manage their own stock and be able to have some transparency over competitor stock in market. So, for example, it will allow you to upload all your own vehicles, be able to compare those and see where they sit within the marketplace, look at the pricing and the whole market pricing, not the individual platforms and so forth, and be able to make, on a day-by-day basis, some really informed decisions on what you should do with pricing, because as we both know, that pricing needs to be done not on a week-by-week basis these days. So it's just some transparency around that. But the other thing is that depending on the type of package you have, you'll be able to see competitor vehicles and competitive dealers in market as well. So you might decide on a package which will allow you to see your key competitors or stock within a certain mileage radius of where you are. And that is really, really powerful. The other part of that is that tool can also be used for perhaps supermarkets and larger businesses where they've got teams of people that are looking and buying stock from different platforms. If they're using the pipeline product, it means they won't be stepping on each other's toes, because how often do you hear, and I know through the work you do, you'll go to dealers and dealer groups and you'll find you've got a guy who's buying off one platform, but actually that dealer's already seen it through their own car buying service and bid a different price on it, where the other guys, and then there's a lady who's looking at something through another channel, and you get into that terrible situation where you can find yourself bidding against your own team members for the same vehicle. So it just helps to give some clarity on what people are working on, what's in market, what bids have been put on vehicles by the members of staff. So it's a really powerful platform that has been a game changer in Australia, albeit the Australian market is a younger market than the UK. But for that product, there'd be more competitors in the UK, but not with the power of the platform that we've got. So that's really, really good. And I think the other part is that, we're going to be striving to bring some products here that will increase the market transparency. Okay, so already with sourcing and with pipeline as well, you're going to be able to have a really clear view of everything going on in the marketplace. But data is king, and we purport to being the premium automotive data provider in other countries, and that's what we want for the UK as well. So that's where we're heading.
Brilliant. And look, I think having had the chance to sit through a couple of the demos. For me, the big win for dealers with Autograb is, back in the day in the early 2010s at Imperial, we'd have our sales team on a Wednesday night scouring Auto Trader, trying to find cars that were priced right that we could buy for stock, and then they'd ring the customer and try and get them in the next day or the day after and buy the car. So clearly, at that point, we weren't volume, but we were still trying to source cars wherever we could and not just rely on the traditional channels where the competition's very high, clearly.
Yeah.
So I think Autograb, what struck me about it is it really just automates that process now for a dealer.
Yeah,
and makes it a far more efficient way of trying to track down that local stock or within a particular radius that is suitable for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And once you start using the sourcing platform, part of that journey as you go through there, and we're obviously there to hold people's hands and help get them used to it, but part of that journey allows you to save individual vehicle searches. So you might be saying, I want to look at all BMW 3 Series within a 30-mile radius of here. You can build that list. It's there. It's workable in the platform. But if you put notifications on it, every time one of those cars that matches your criteria comes up in market, it will send you a note. So there's a bit of a sort of a week or 2 week period where there's an awful lot of vehicles in there, and you've got to work through them, decide what you want to look at, what you don't want to look at. But thereafter, it kind of manages itself. And you can set up as many searches as you wish, as detailed as you wish. If you want to look at, 3-year-old Fiat 500s within a 10-mile radius of your dealership, that's fine. If you want to look at any vehicle up to 6 years old, up to 100,000 miles, within a predefined area, then that'll be what it is. And, there are so many filters in there that help make the job easier for you. You can sort by the number of vehicles that have had a price drop in the last however many days. You can sort by the number of vehicles that have been on sale for more than 60 days. You can be really, really specific and make life much, much easier for you. And that's the feedback that we get from the customers that are using it successfully. And there are so many different use cases. We've got smaller dealers that are using it actually perhaps just as a tool in the showroom. So when Neil comes in to buy a car, we haven't got it in stock, get on Autograb, see what we can find, reach out to the vendor, take the deposit off Neil while you're doing that, and that's done, through to larger organizations where they are buying 10 to 15 cars a day sourced through the platform because they've got somebody working that tool for 8 hours a day. That's their sole focus. So many different applications for it, but that's the game changer, the sourcing product.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Oh.
Rupert, we're at the end of our time. It's been a real pleasure catching up with you today, and thanks for taking us through Autograb and explaining the value it brings to the UK automotive sector. Now, before I let you go, we need to clear up the icebreaker question for our viewers. So which of the 3 interesting facts was in fact false?
Well, I have been on holiday with Paul Chuckle. He's an incredible guy, very, very funny, really, really interesting, amazing life journey. He's a good guy. He's a good friend. Secondly, I have met Sir Alex Ferguson in the gents. So the answer to your question, the one that isn't true, is I have not climbed Kilimanjaro. I find it difficult to climb 3 flights of stairs, let alone climb a mountain. That would horrify me. And I'm in awe of everybody that actually does that, the work that can be, the charity work that's done through people doing that, and just the life experience of doing it. So no, the lie is that I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Fantastic. Look, thanks again, Rupert. For more information about Autograb, visit the website autograb.co.uk or message Rupert on LinkedIn or through any other channel to arrange a demo. Finally, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and a quick reminder that here at Motorvait, we offer 1-hour remote one-to-one dealer discovery sessions for free. To learn more about these sessions and why you should book one, visit our website, motorvate.co.uk. Goodbye for now, and thanks for watching.